Extraordinary real story of the folk hero Davy Crockett. Introduction. Behind the coonskin cap, Davy Crockett. The name alone conjures images of the American wilderness, of a rugged man in a coonskin cap braving untamed forests, fighting bears, and standing tall at the Alamo. For generations, Crockett has been celebrated in folk songs, comic books, films, and television as the ultimate symbol of the American frontier spirit. But behind the myth lies a complex, fascinating, and at times contradictory real person, a man whose life intersected with some of the most tumultuous and transformative decades in United States history. This is the extraordinary real story of Davy Crockett, frontier legend, political pioneer, and enduring American folk hero. Origins. Born on the edge of America. David Crockett was born on August 17, 1786, in a backwoods cabin near the Nolichucky River, in what was then East Tennessee. His family's origins were humble, marked by hardship and the ever-present threat of violence on the American borderlands. His father, John Crockett, was a veteran of the American Revolution and a wanderer, always in search of new land and opportunity. His mother, Rebecca Hawkins Crockett, managed the household and children in a world where survival depended on resourcefulness and grit. The Crocketts were part of a wave of settlers pushing west beyond the Appalachian Mountains, encroaching on Native American lands. David grew up in a region rife with conflict, where settlers and indigenous peoples vied for control of the land. Childhood hardships. From an early age, David experienced the hard realities of frontier life. His father's ventures frequently ended in debt, and the family often moved from place to place. At age 12, David was bound out to a neighbor to help pay off his father's debts, working as a hired hand. He learned to hunt, track, and survive in the wild, a skill set that would later become central to his legend. David's education was sporadic. He attended school for only a few months but quickly left after a fight with a class bully. Instead, his classroom was the forest, rivers, and hills of Tennessee. These early years shaped his independence, resilience, and a reputation as a crack shot and expert woodsman. The making of a frontiersman, a life in the wilderness. As a teenager, Crockett struck out on his own, traveling through Tennessee, Virginia, and even down to Baltimore as a cattle drover and laborer. He returned home at age 16 and soon married Mary, Polly Finley, with whom he had 3 children. After Polly's death in 1815, he remarried Elizabeth Patton and had several more children. Crockett's skill as a hunter and trapper earned him local fame. He supplied meat for his family and neighbors, often trading pelts and game for goods. His exploits, tracking bears, outsmarting predators, and surviving against the odds, became the seeds of the tall tales that would later surround him. Military service and Indian wars. Crockett's first taste of national events came during the Creek War, 1813-1814, a theater of the larger War of 1812, when he served as a scout and militiaman under Andrew Jackson. He participated in campaigns against the Creek Indians, witnessing the violence and complexities of frontier warfare. While he would later become known as an Indian fighter, Crockett's first-hand experiences with Native Americans were nuanced. He respected their courage and, later in life, opposed some of the harshest policies against them. From frontier to state house, Crockett enters politics, local leadership. After his military service, Crockett returned to Tennessee and became active in local affairs. He built a reputation as a fair-minded, straight-talking community leader, serving as a justice of the peace and a colonel in the local militia. His natural charisma, storytelling prowess, and genuine concern for his neighbors made him a popular figure. Rise to the state legislature. In 1821, Crockett was elected to the Tennessee state legislature. Here, he advocated for the interests of poor settlers and farmers, often clashing with wealthy speculators and politicians. He opposed laws that favored the rich at the expense of common folk, an early indication of his populist streak. Crockett's speeches were famous for their wit and plain-spoken wisdom. He was known for his honesty and lack of pretension, qualities that endeared him to his constituents and set him apart from the political elite. Davy Crockett goes to Congress. A national stage, Crockett's popularity propelled him to the national stage. In 1827, he was elected to the United States House of Representatives, representing Tennessee. Over 6 years, he served 3 terms, with a gap in between, quickly becoming a celebrity in Washington, D.C. What made Crockett unique in Congress was not just his frontier background, but his refusal to play by the usual political rules. He was a fierce champion of the underdog, an opponent of corruption, and a relentless critic of government overreach. The Indian Removal Act and defiance of Andrew Jackson. Perhaps the most defining episode of Crockett's political career was his opposition to President Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act of 1830. While Jackson and his supporters pushed for the forced relocation of Native American nations from the Southeast, a policy that led to the infamous Trail of Tears, Crockett stood nearly alone among Southern representatives in opposing the bill. Crockett argued that the act violated treaties and the rights of Native Americans, as well as the moral conscience of the country. His stand, though courageous, was deeply unpopular in his home district and among political allies. He famously declared, "I would sooner be honestly and politically damned than hypocritically immortalized." His defiance cost him dearly. He lost his seat in Congress in 1831, but was re-elected in 1833, only to lose again in 1835. Crockett's willingness to speak out against injustice, even at the expense of his political career, is one of the most admirable and overlooked aspects of his legacy. The birth of a legend, Crockett's celebrity and myth-making, a folk hero in his own time. By the 1830s, Davy Crockett had become a national celebrity. His exploits, both real and exaggerated, were celebrated in newspapers, songs, and stage plays. Crockett himself contributed to his legend, penning an autobiography, a narrative of the life of David Crockett of the state of Tennessee, that mixed fact with tall tale, humor, and self-deprecating wit. The Crockett Almanacs, a series of wildly popular comic books, further fueled his myth. They depicted him wrestling bears, jumping rivers, and outsmarting politicians with equal ease. These stories, while not always grounded in fact, cemented Crockett as the larger-than-life embodiment of the American frontier. The coonskin cap and cultural iconography. The image of Crockett in a coonskin cap became synonymous with the rugged individualism and adventurous spirit of early America. While there is little evidence he wore such a cap regularly, it became his trademark thanks to early illustrations, and later, the Walt Disney television series of the 1950s, which introduced Crockett to a whole new generation. The road to Texas, a new frontier, defeated but undaunted. After his final congressional defeat in 1835, Crockett famously declared, "You may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas." Like many restless Americans of his era, he was drawn by the promise of land, opportunity, and adventure in Mexican Texas. Joining the Texan cause, Crockett arrived in Texas in early 1836 as Anglo settlers were rebelling against Mexican rule. He quickly joined the Texas Revolution, seeking both a fresh start and a new cause to champion. In San Antonio de Bexar, he and a small band of volunteers took up arms at the Alamo, a former mission-turned-fortress. The Alamo, last stand and martyrdom. The siege begins. In late February 1836, Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna surrounded the Alamo with thousands of troops. Inside, fewer than 200 defenders, including Crockett, Jim Bowie, and William Travis, prepared for a desperate defense. For 13 days, the outnumbered Texans held out, hoping for reinforcements that never came. Crockett's final moments, on March 6, 1836, Santa Anna's troops stormed the walls. The defenders were overwhelmed and killed to a man. The exact details of Crockett's death remain shrouded in legend. Some accounts claim he died fighting valiantly, rifle in hand. Others suggest he was captured and executed. What is certain is that Crockett's bravery and sacrifice became instant legend, inspiring cries of "Remember the Alamo" in the subsequent Texan victory at San Jacinto. Legacy, legend, reality, and the American imagination. A symbol of the frontier. Crockett's death at the Alamo cemented his status as a martyr for freedom and a symbol of American courage and resilience. He was quickly elevated to a near-mythic status, celebrated in song, story, and art. His life came to embody the restless energy of a nation pushing its boundaries and the belief that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things. Political pioneer and populist. But Crockett's true legacy is richer and more complex than the folk tales suggest. He was a dedicated public servant, a defender of the powerless, and a rare voice of conscience in a time of political opportunism and expansionist zeal. His opposition to the Indian Removal Act remains one of the earliest examples of political dissent in the United States, a testament to his integrity and willingness to stand by his principles. Fact versus fiction. It is often difficult to separate Crockett the man from Crockett the myth. The stories that made him famous, wrestling bears, killing 105 panthers in one season, leaping rivers in a single bound, are products of a vibrant oral tradition and the American appetite for larger-than-life heroes. Yet, behind the exaggerations was a real person, witty, courageous, flawed, and deeply human. Enduring influence. Davy Crockett's legend has continued to evolve. In the 20th century, his story was revived by Disney, with Fess Parker's portrayal making Crockett a household name once again. The coonskin cap became a symbol of youthful adventure, and The Ballad of Davy Crockett was sung by millions. Historians and scholars have continued to explore his life, peeling back the layers of myth to reveal a complex figure who helped shape the American frontier and the nation's political conscience. Conclusion. Remembering the real Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett was more than the sum of his legends. He was a man who lived at the crossroads of myth and reality, embodying the contradictions and possibilities of the early United States. His life was a testament to the power of individual agency, the importance of standing up for one's beliefs, and the enduring allure of the American wilderness. As a frontiersman, Crockett symbolized the spirit of exploration and self-reliance that fueled the nation's westward expansion. As a politician, he reminded us that the true measure of a public servant lies not in popularity, but in courage and principle. As a martyr at the Alamo, he became a rallying point for freedom and resistance against tyranny. Today, Davy Crockett's legacy endures, not just in the tales we tell, but in the values he embodied: honesty, bravery, independence, and a relentless pursuit of justice. In peeling back the layers of myth, we find a hero who was not perfect, but who was, in every sense, extraordinary.